For many, COVID 19 has been nothing more than a hoax and nothing to be taken seriously. But for our guest tonight, it's been the complete opposite. Welcome to On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Since December, the novel coronavirus has been shaking up countries around the world and it has tore down healthcare systems, infected over 30 million patients, and claimed the lives of over 930,000 people worldwide. And with over 3,000 confirmed cases in our country, almost everyone knows someone who has been exposed to the virus. On tonight's episode, Living with COVID, our guests will tell us their stories from healthcare workers continuously exposed to the virus to those patients who actually contracted it and are either living with or recovered from COVID. Don't go anywhere. On the Record begins right after this quick break.
So the project really pays itself.
Correct.
They set up
Not the conference, more the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
On August 28th, I began quarantining myself at home after I started feeling ill. On September 8th, I tested positive for COVID 19. Fortunately, a decision to quarantine now 20 days ago has protected my family, friends, and colleagues from possible exposure. My experience has given me firsthand insight into what thousands of Bahamians have had to endure over the past 6 months with their COVID exposures and contractions of this virus. This week, we are dedicating our discussion to living with COVID and talking to medical experts and COVID survivors to provide a glimpse into the COVID experience. My first guest is a pediatrician with special interest in adolescent care and CEO of Boss Up by Dr. Kenny. She's Dr. Kenva Fowler. Dr. Fowler, welcome to On the Record. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jerome, for inviting me, you and your team.
I want to start by you sharing with us what has it been like for you having to treat individuals, whether suspected or confirmed with COVID. What is it like for you as a healthcare professional to have to face into this daily?
Well, to be honest with you, when you look at COVID-19 as a whole, yes, there's some things that it's in the back of your mind, but considering we've been practicing for medicine and I've been practicing for the last 8 years, there's some things I've already put in place to provide proper prevention in terms of antimicrobial spread. So as a physician, I have already been practicing hand hygiene and we've been practicing how to not influence air droplets from various viruses. So with COVID-19 now being exposed to having COVID positive cases and even the suspected ones, what it means is now that I've just stepped up my game. It just means that I'm paying closer attention. I'm more aware of my environment, not just for myself, but for my patients at large. Also, stepping up the game may mean more team effort, more teamwork as far as the healthcare workers are involved. Myself, with the nurses, with sanitary persons. It's just a team effort in terms of promoting what we've already been doing.
This virus still presents with so many unknowns. I mean, there are so many symptoms, and the cases vary. Does that present a fair factor for you when you consider your own health? What could happen if I'm infected, or if somebody I know is infected? Does that present a fair factor for you, and even for patients?
Most certainly, the fear factor is there. Um, we're seeing our numbers continuously climbing. We know that in the Bahamas we have community spread. And so you have asymptomatic carriers walking around. And so, to be honest, anyone could have COVID. And so that fear and that anxiety sits in the back of our minds all the time. So although that fear is there, what you do is you push through that fear. You do through that fear. You continue to work through that fear, and sometimes you allow that fear to cause you to even act more accordingly, following the protocols. And that's something that I would encourage anybody to do. Use that fear and push through your fear. So for us, that fear factor doesn't leave, and actually you need that also to cause you to kind of stay in line, cause you to be more cautious, cause you to say, you know what, consider the other person more, consider your environment. So that fear factor sits there for a while, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But we just have to know how to push through it.
What are some of the things that you see right off with patients who are presenting, who may suspect or you suspect? What are some of the things that you see that raise those red flags for you almost immediately?
Well, almost immediately, once you hear of fever and cough, especially in the adult population, that's a red flag. Certainly, I work in the Department of Pediatrics, and you find that the kids are presenting slightly different in terms of not just with a fever or respiratory symptoms, but they can present with diarrhea. They can present in shock. And so, for us as pediatricians, our index of suspicion actually increases.
um, Kids present a different kind of challenge. In the beginning, we were of the impression, we were made to believe, I think all the signs and evidence was there that kids weren't really at risk, but we see that that has changed. What kinds of special circumstances do kids present once they have contracted the virus?
So, in terms of special circumstances, the thing that we have noticed a lot about our kids is that they can not notice, but the research is showing that they're presenting with diarrhea illnesses. And when they present with these diarrheal illnesses, it then predisposes them to something called shock, meaning that their heart cannot function to circulate, um, um, meet the demands of the body. And so their blood pressures tend to be a bit low. They tend to be tachycardic, meaning their heart rates go up. So they present in these severe illnesses, severe symptoms. Um, Recently, the thought around it is that they can also have seizures. They can also have different thrombotic events like throat clots as well. So there are a number of things that pose a problem in terms of um, diagnosis for kids with COVID-19.
We are at the point now where children are returning to school, raising, even more concerns. As a parent, as a guardian, what can you do to try and safeguard your kids as they go into the school environment and go into the learning environment?
Certain things you want to safeguard is through education. You have to find a way to communicate with your kids. And sometimes that involves coming up with creative ideas to get them to even wash their hands, coming up with creative ideas to say not to use someone else's mask, where it means branding their mask, just educating them in terms of, COVID-19 is a bad, bad bug. You have to tell your kids, especially the ones that are older enough to understand. Safe measures would also be in terms of the bigger kids. You would, of course, encourage the 6 feet away. Our teachers will be more responsible for the younger kids and keeping them apart. And you want to definitely have the parents communicate with the school to ensure that protocols are being carried out correctly. And keep in mind the nurseries or that are hosting the kids less than 2 years, you don't want to use masks. It's not recommended that kids less than 2 years old to cover their nose and their mouths, as they are nose breathers and they can strangle and all that stuff. And so you definitely want to safeguard against that.
We are, we are facing a situation where people are I guess there are two schools of thought. Some people will, get almost immediately paranoid at the sign of any symptom that could be related. And then you have others who may just overlook something and attribute it to some other kind of illness or something else. What's your advice for people who, so many people out there who are watching this now who are thinking, you know, once I suspect something or I realize something isn't right, what's the advice that you give to people? It's not always practical to say, well, I'm going to isolate at the first sign that something may be wrong. I mean, what do you, how do you push past all of that when there's still so many unknowns?
One of the things we have to consider is that everybody bodies react differently to COVID-19. Some may have fever, some may have cough, some may not produce anything. That being said, once you have any signs that you are ill, the first suggestion is to talk to a healthcare provider, talk to your doctor, your physician, and let them know of your illness. And they can advise you in terms of what is the next step. Usually, the 311 number is helpful as well in terms of communicating symptoms to them, and they can advise you. One of the other things too, South Beach Clinic is one of our public facilities that have been testing where if there is a concern that you have COVID or you've been exposed, then most certainly you want to show up there and tell them of your symptoms and signs that you are having. The emergency room is also here, but it's really just for urgent care. In other words, you find that you're running into issues with respiratory illness and it's really severe, then of course, this is the place you want to come to. Outside of that, if you're just having red flags like a fever or a cough, but you're stable, South Beach Clinic, I'd say touch bases with them, touch bases with the 311 number and your private care physician.
What has it been like for you and your colleagues with so many of you being affected? You have so many colleagues who are either in quarantine or have been infected. What is it like, for you all in this fight every day and so many of your colleagues, out for whatever reason, whether confirmed or just quarantined?
It's been a lot. Because here's the thing. Your colleagues become your family. They become your friends. And that being said, it's almost like COVID-19 hits your doorstep. And when it comes to your doorstep, you alone knows that experience. And for us, considering we are at risk and our colleagues are being affected, it causes a mental toll on us. But we know how to push through it. Our job is to know how to mourn, but still be able to push and still be able to work, but continue to follow proper protocols as much possible to not infect anybody else in our environment, immediate environment, in our homes. That being said, but every day is a day where you walk in faith. You walk hoping and praying that the person, your colleague or your family member, friend, that I would call them, is okay. That even if they are contracted the virus, even if they're infected, that their bodies are strong enough to fight it. You walk in that faith that they will get better. So you feel the mental toll of it. You do.
When people, have found themselves once you've contracted, what do you say to your patients now who, have to live with this, for the next few weeks and are concerned about the long-term effects, and even in the now, how do you encourage them, to get through this?
So certainly, we would encourage them to comply with orders. So most certainly, quarantine with all means necessary. Some persons may be taking minerals, some may be taking vitamins, some physicians may place them on antibiotics. Importance compliance with those stuff is important. And most certainly in terms of them going forward and into the long-term effects of it, we're still trying to get more information as to how The body builds immunity, and if there's that chance of reinfection, there was one case that was mentioned previously. So there are some chances. So basically, you would actually tell them to continue proper protocols, continue to follow those, continue to try and be safe. Um, and then there is that support system that they need to establish to continue communication, even if there's no face to face communication with the family members. You want to try hard, continue with the virtual communication as far as possible, to stay in contact. You need that support system. You need someone encouraging you. You need someone to talk to. Do not allow that to sit on the sidelines as you go through your illness. And then I'm faith believing, so prayer at the end of it all, definitely add your prayer, connect with a higher power, definitely, and you'll find yourself going through it and keeping a positive mindset as well.
Okay. Dr. Fowler, thank you very much. Some great advice. And I know, you know, that individuals who are living with this really appreciate that bit of information, and continue to be safe. And thank you and your colleagues for the great work that you are doing, helping us through this and helping us to continue to be safe. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for having me, Jerome.
Well, when On the Record returns, we continue our conversation on living with COVID with a nurse who's been fighting this contagious virus for over a month now. Stay with us.
Welcome to On the Record. Looking for more On the Record? If you miss our Thursday showing at 8 p.m., join us for the re-airing on Friday mornings at 10, and then again each Sunday night at 8:30. Or go to our YouTube channel and catch up on all of our past episodes. And then like our Facebook and Instagram pages for a preview of upcoming shows and get a chance to ask your questions. Just look for On the Record.
You're watching On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer, and this segment is brought to you by our friends at Executive Printers. Although adorning herself daily with protective personal equipment following the strict protocols put in place and doing everything possible to ensure she didn't contract COVID 19, my next guest found herself having to face her worst nightmare. My guest for this segment of the show is a registered nurse in the Accident and Emergency Department of the Princess Margaret Hospital, Miss Sherrod Coakley. Nurse Coakley, welcome to On the Record.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, how are you feeling today? I know you've had quite a difficult time, so how are you doing first off?
Today is not one of my good days, but my motto is grateful to be alive.
Let's start by going through your dilemma. Tell us, when was it that you first suspected that you may have been positive, and what has it been like for you since discovering that you were positive?
Well, because I work in an accident emergency department, you can be exposed. You can get exposed rather quickly than anybody else. So I got a call. I actually got a call from surveillance letting me know, hey, you've been exposed at work, and I'm going to need you to quarantine. So this wasn't a new for me because I had to previously quarantine in February because I became exposed at work. So it wasn't new. I expected to be the 14 days. I'm home, no symptoms, and it'll be fine. Uh, that was about August 11th ish. About 2 days later, because they want you to check your temperature twice a day to make sure that you're not having any symptoms. So that's one of the symptoms. So I was checking. And then the second day, I started to feel extremely tired. I couldn't get out of bed. And then I started to check my temperatures, and I was like, oh, okay. It says 102.9. That's a fever. I started to get a little worried. So I called and I said, okay, I'm experiencing a fever and I'm experiencing low energy and fatigue, um, to the point where I really can't get up out of my bed to move. Um, and so they were like, okay, you you need to get swabbed. I need you to go to South Beach and go and get your swab done. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try my best. I struggled to get there. My friend had to take me. I got there. My pressure was high. My pulse, my heart rate was high. My temperature was high. And I just felt bad. I couldn't hold myself up. I was literally slouched all over the table because it just was so hard. It was so difficult to just hold my own body weight up. And they asked me some questions, took my information down, got my nasal swab, which was super uncomfortable. If anybody got it, I would know it's very uncomfortable. And then I was there for a few hours, uh, getting some fluids. They gave me some medication, try help out because I was also experiencing joint pains. So with the joint pains, with the fever, can't hold myself up. Everything just felt wrong. Uh, so I was there for a while. I was there till about 11 p.m. that night, actually. From about 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. that night I was there. And the doctor came in and he said, "You're ill, but we currently don't have any beds to put you in. Do you think that you feel comfortable enough to go home until we get your test results?" And all I really wanted to do was go home and lay down, really. And so I did that because I understand there are no beds available. The numbers were already high. People were very sick, and in my brain, I was like, yes, people are way sicker than I am. And I was having some difficulty breathing, but I'm like, it's not as bad, so I should be fine. And so I went home. Went home when I tried to sleep, and then the next day I felt way worse. Breathing problems came way worse. And then my mom called me because I'm from Eleuthera. So my mom, she called me. She usually likes to FaceTime me because she said that I don't tell her everything. So she FaceTimed me and she looked at me. She's like, "What happened?" I was like, "What do you mean, mommy?" She said, "You look ill." I said, "Mommy, I'm not gonna lie. I feel really bad." And then I had to shortness of breath, so I couldn't complete the sentences. And she was like, you need to go to the hospital." I said, "Mommy, I really don't wanna go." But because it's different being a nurse and then being a patient. Most nurses don't ever want to be a patient, ever. So if we could not go to the hospital, we won't. Um, so my mom was like, "Yes, you're going to the hospital." And I called the ambulance, and the ambulance was booked to capacity. The lady was like, "We are booked. It's going to take us hours to come to you because we have so much people that are so ill." And I was like, "I understand." My mom was like, "No, I'm not accepting this." Like, thank God for my parents. My mom, she's a God-fearing woman, but she don't stop. So she said, "Give me some numbers. Give me people at work. I need to get you to the hospital." So I gave her my supervisor's number and I gave her Mancha Williams' number, the Harmon Union president, and she called in the next 10 minutes. She called me. She was like, "Someone's coming for you. You're going to the hospital." I said, "Mommy, how you work that out?" She said, don't question me. Put some stuff in a bag. You go into the hospital." I said, "Okay, fine." So I managed to grab some stuff up and get to the door to open it to be able to let her in. And I felt like eternity. I'm not gonna lie. I felt like eternity sitting there having difficulty breathing and sweating profusely and feeling like I can't keep my head up. It was rough. And my mom is sitting on the phone with me and she's like, "Gerard, pray. Prayer changes things." So I got to the hospital. Um, I had to wait some time, of course, because I'm experiencing COVID symptoms now. So yeah, you're a nurse right now, but for right now, you're a patient and you're experiencing COVID symptoms and you're gonna be quarantined. It's gonna take some time. So I got my results back about a day later and they told me you're positive for COVID. And I was shocked, but not shocked. I was like, okay, I have it. So what's the next step? Um, I got transferred to Doctor Hospital West 2 days later, and that's when everything just went. That's when my mental health, I think, shook me the most because I was now a patient, not a nurse. I wasn't a nurse anymore. Even when I tried to be a nurse or I tried to do things for myself, I couldn't walk to the bathroom. I
What if,
turned over the bed to even
wow.
fix myself. That's how bad it was.
You obviously had something else going on. I want to talk about your, your other illness and your comorbidities that have made this an even more difficult situation for you.
Yes, sir. Sometime around last year, I started having pain, different places in my body, and started having the same kind of weakness. And I ended up getting referred to a rheumatologist. And I've been being worked up for that, but I've been having some issues where my immune system is attacking itself. And then also, I got diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension, which simply means that the artery that takes blood to my lungs to get oxygen is working hard. So prior to COVID, I'd already had difficulty breathing, walking in my car. I couldn't go to the gym anymore. I couldn't run down the street. So I was already having these issues even before COVID. That's what made it so scary for my parents and I, because there's like, you're already having respiratory issues, and now you got a virus that actually attacks your lungs. So it
So
was scary.
you got, you were well enough to be discharged at one point from doctor's hospital, but you had another issue again, correct?
Correct. I uh I pushed for my discharge at Doctor's Hospital West because I didn't need the oxygen anymore. So I was like, somebody else could be using this bed, and I'm like, that I don't know why I think that way, but I just think that way. Somebody else could be using this bed since my oxygen is fine. But I also ended up having some problems with my stomach. So I ended up getting fecal impaction. So my stomach was large. I looked like I was 7 months pregnant. So we attempted to fix that. I got discharged, and by Monday, I got discharged on Thursday, and by Monday, I was back in hospital again for breathing issues. My pulse was high again, and I was like, "No, I'm not going this time. I'm not going again." I said it's happened before. I could handle this home. Uh-uh. My family wouldn't allow me. The ambulance came for me this time, and I spent 3 days again in hospital. They did a scan of my chest, and it was like, "Yep, you're still positive for COVID, and it's in your lungs." So I was like, "Ugh, yeah, it wasn't so bad though." I found myself in the hospital helping the patients next to me because the nurses, oh my God, they work so hard. They are like stretched and they've been working. I think it's when I was proud to be a nurse. In my 2 weeks in hospital, in doctor's hospital, and in the legacy area, I was proud to be a nurse because I watched them work to slave. They come on 8 o'clock that morning, left 12 a.m. that morning, and came back on 8 a.m. that morning, the same time, and still gave it their best. I was proud, still proud to be
Let
a nurse watching them do it.
Let me ask you, what has it been like for you mentally? I know that you live alone, and so you've been trying to take care of yourself, with the aid of others from time to time. But what has it been like for you mentally to have, facing into this with the difficulties that you have had, medically? But what has the mental strain been like for you?
Mr. Scott, it has been hard. It has been so hard. Many nights I wanted to cry. Many nights I wanted to give up. And that's why I call this thing a fight and a battle. Because if you don't have the right people in your life encouraging you, if you're not praying, if you don't have something to occupy your time, or if you don't see somebody's face at least once a day, you would go out your mind. I thank God for my mom. She calls me every couple hours. My family, my couple times inside the hospital, I had to put my phone on airplane mode because I was getting so much encouraging calls and texts, and that's what got me through. And being home alone, people coming over and knocking on the door and be like, I'm just dropping something on the doorstep for you, or they'll call and be like, you need anything, or somebody will send me a prayer, and music. Music is so important. Music has kept my life in the hospital when all the noise of the machines and the screaming and stuff. I would put the noise canceling headphones on and I'd find a song that I like, jazz, beats or something. music, prayer, support. Those three things, and God. Because many days, no matter what my mommy said to me, I was like, Mommy, I'm tired. Mommy, I'm weary. I'm getting
I
weary. And only God
we,
can
we've we've got to wrap up. I wish we could have talked for so much longer, but I want you to leave us with something. I want you to give a message to the Bahamian people who are watching this, those who have not been affected as you have, or as I have, or others. But what do you want to say to people out there who, are not taking it seriously, who are not following the protocols, who think it's, we may be exaggerating, or it's too much, or just don't want to be bothered? Give a message to those people, please.
My message to those people are wear your mask, social distance. This is not a joke. Many people are walking around asymptomatic. They have no symptoms. Somebody could have, like me, I could have symptoms, and the person right next to you could not, and both you can be COVID positive. Wear your mask. This is not a joke. People are dying. The healthcare system is strained. The nurses are working hard, and we're doing our best. And once you follow what you're supposed to do on the outside, you don't have enough resources and enough nurses to be able to help on the inside. Our nurses are getting sick. We just need you to listen and follow protocol, and just follow protocol. It's hard. It's hard, you know, not being able to go to work to help my colleagues who are struggling, who have to come out. Just listen, wear your mask, listen to the government, wear your mask, social distance, and only come to the hospital if you're sick and need it. Because COVID, we're trying to fight it. The whole Bahamas, the whole world is trying to fight COVID. Just fight it with us and do your part.
Ms. Coakley, I just want to, first of all, encourage you to continue to get better. I know this has been a long battle for you. You and I have spoken, so I know, the difficulties, and be encouraged, and know that, so many people out there are praying and supporting you. And you certainly are an encouragement to so many people. And we continue to pray for your safe recovery, and we thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. When we come back, we hear the story of an officer of the Bahamas Department of Corrections and what her battle with COVID has been like. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to On the Record, and the balanced, true, and open debate you've been looking for.
Welcome back. You're watching On the Record. Tonight we cover living with COVID. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer, and this segment is brought to you by the Grand Bahama Power Company. While recorded confirmed cases may only be 3,000, on the show last week, President of the Consultant Physician Staff Association, Dr. Sabrika Pinda Butler, alluded to the fact that there are indeed more. For many, they just do not wish to be tested. For others, denial. And then there are some where the stigma paralyzes their bravery to step up. And these are just some of the reasons. My guest for this segment of the show is one who has recovered from COVID and is now back to work, restoring normalcy to her life. She is Janae Ambrista Ducati. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Take us through your encounter. When did you realize something may have been wrong? What prompted you to get tested? And certainly, what was your experience like once you learned that you were COVID positive?
Okay, well, first of all, getting tested was not anywhere on my plans. Seeing the videos with people, they were using like this oversized Q-tips, I was like, no, I will never do that. Then I also had in my mind as if the testing was giving you COVID. I really, to be honest with you, was a non-believer. I didn't believe that this COVID thing was real. I started feeling bad between Saturday night and Sunday morning, which was August 15th and August 16th. And that Sunday morning, I got up and I was having excruciating migraines. I don't have headaches. So I asked my husband, I said, can you make me something to eat? And he made me some chicken noodle soup, and I wanted some hot tea. Like, that's all my body desired. I wanted some hot tea. So he made me some lime tea with no sugar and honey. And I took that, and I took 2 Tylenols for the headache because, Tylenol is a pain reliever. After taking the 2 Tylenol and then laid back down because I was feeling a little weak, nothing happened. I woke up with the same bad headache, and then after that, it was like going through the whole day just pumping Tylenol to relieve the pain, the headache. I was like, this ain't making no sense. So I went on Google. I Googled Tylenol. After Googling Tylenol, and they saying you're taking it for such a long period of time, it's not good, and especially if you're not getting any results. So the following day, which was Monday, um, still was having the headache. So I decided to go and get me some Panadol. Went to the pharmacy, got me some Panadol, and came back home, took that, didn't have any appetite. Then I realized I started to, I became hot. Like I was having cold sweat, started sweating a lot. And I was like, something isn't right. You know what I mean? And then my mom, she was just coming in from the States that same day. I was supposed to pick her up from the airport. But because of the fatigueness, I couldn't pick her up. So I had to um, make provision for her in order for her to come home. She was picked up and dropped home, and I told her, I said, Mommy, I don't want you to come near me. I don't know what's going on. I said, I'm having bad headaches, and now I'm sweating. I said, I don't know what's going on, and I'm feeling very weak. So she was like, okay, I bought this temperature that you can take yourself. And she gave me, I mean, thermometer, sorry, and I took it, and I did my temperature, and my temperature was 108. Like the flu, you know what I mean? So she was like, okay. So I said, well, you just coming back from your spine surgery. I don't want you to be near me. So she was like, okay. So she went into her room and I stayed to myself in my room. And going from Tuesday, from Monday now into Tuesday, still having the headache, even though I took the Panadol, still having the headache, still having the fever. I was like, man, something ain't right. I was like, I have work for 2 o'clock Wednesday, so that's why I was saying between Monday and Tuesday would give me time to get over this flu or whatever this is. When Tuesday came, that's when I realized I lost my sense of smell and taste. So I was like, oh, this must be the COVID. And I messaged a family member who advised me to call the hotline. I was like, no, I'm not doing that because I'm not going to be in their account. I'm not going to be the first to take vaccine whenever it comes on. I'm not doing that. And he was like, you have to do this because this is deadly. This is nothing to play with. So I said, okay, I will do it. I called the hotline, all the numbers that they made available to us to contact them by, and no one answered, not one hotline. I waited until 8 p.m. that night, and I called the 8 p.m. to the 8 a.m. number, still didn't get a contact. So therefore, I called my job that Wednesday, and when I called, I told my supervisor the symptoms that I was experiencing, and she was like, "Do not come to work," because I told her I can come and they can take my temperature at the front gate because that's the procedure, and they will see that. No, don't come. But I heard that they are doing those people who are having some or experiencing some symptoms must go to Southeast Clinic. Like I said, me didn't want people to be aware or to know that I had COVID. That was not nowhere in my that wasn't happening. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna deal with this myself because this is just like basically flu symptoms. So over the time, I was having a lot of cold sweat. The migraines were off and on now because I was taking the Panadol, so it was not as bad as it was the first 3 days. the sense of smell and taste completely gone. Gone. It's like appetite gone. I didn't want to eat. And then after talking to one of my friends, and I was telling them what I was experiencing, and he said he had the same thing. He said he lost his sense of smell and taste. And as soon as he did that, he went to a doctor. Because I couldn't reach the hotline, I remember emailing someone from Ministry of Health who had to give me my letter to return back to work. So I decided to reach out to her via email, and I asked her to give me a call to see if I could speak to someone at Ministry of Health to let them know what was going on. Saying that my family member really was insisting on that I get in contact with someone. So I messaged her that Wednesday. She calls me back that Thursday morning, and we spoke. And then, which is her name is Miss Rita Forbes. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. She referred me to this lady. She said it's a nursing Seymour. I spoke to Nurse Seymour. She asked me what are my symptoms, what am I experiencing, how long it was for. Then I asked her what do I need to do. So she told me she'll give me a call back. She gave me a call back, and she told me she asked me where I'm at. I told her I'm in my room. She told me, asked me who all I live with. I told her. So she said I thought I was quarantining myself from Monday because I realized like something wasn't right. Um, and that's when she told me, she said, well, you will have to go get tested. Like I said, you could tell me all you want to go get tested. I was not putting that Q-tip up my nose.
Now,
So,
what
and like I
made
said, I
you?
didn't want
I got to get in here. What made you decide to go and get tested at this point?
because Nurse Seymour told me in order for me to go back to work, I must take a test.
And once you got that test and you got the results to say that you were positive, what went through your mind at that point?
I didn't take the test to say that I was positive. I was not going to take a test with my symptoms. And I said, if I had to take a test to prove that I was positive, then you have to take another test to prove that, you're over it. So it's like you have to take two. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like I said, coming back from my experience with the quarantine because of traveling, it sets a stigma on you. I
Mm-hmm.
was quarantined for traveling. I was not quarantined for experiencing any symptoms. But where people knew that I was in quarantine, when I returned back to work, um, they acted different. Like, it was
Yeah,
not everyone, but some people
I
acted different. I mean,
I'm glad you brought that up because there is still a lot of stigma, even with the family members of people, and I'm sure your family members would have experienced it. Um, let's talk about the stigma that you have faced, from people even the people that you work with through all of this.
okay, people that I know ain't much new. Because, like I told you, I didn't want no one to know. Now at work, they know I was missing. Then they realized that I was on quarantine. I had people hand me something like this, as if like she was scorning me, as if I had leprosy or something. Like you could actually see something on me,
How did that
and
make you feel?
it made me feel bad. That's why when I actually came in contact with this virus, I was not planning to let anybody know.
Do you think there are a lot of people out there who are hiding because of that? People are not
Most
saying or
def-
don't want to get tested or acting as if they are normal.
most definitely, most definitely.
How do we get past this? Because we're not gonna do any. We're not gonna make a serious dent until people start to accept that COVID is going to be with us for a while, and we've got to live with it. How do we get past this?
Um, it's real, most definitely. A non-believer to a believer, like they say, experience is the best teacher. Um, how we can get past it is that we have to realize no one sleeps together. You understand? Um, Anybody can get this. You can get this from probably the card at Super Value handle. You know what I mean? It's so therefore when one has come in contact with the virus or someone has known that this person has the virus, that's not the time to sit around and try to figure out how they got it or talk down on them because It can happen to you, anybody. You know what I mean? The only thing you can do is just follow the precautions that they told us, the rules that they told us to follow, but there's nothing you can do.
Prior to this, did you ever think that you would find yourself suffering from COVID and going through what you went through and fearing for your life at any point? Did you ever think when all of this started, this is what could happen to me?
No, that's why I told you I would have doctored myself, but home it was like a flu. It's like headache. Yes, you have those things, the cold sweat or whatever. I never thought that would have happened. I never thought that I would have actually be gasping to breathe. That right
You
there. That
you have become a believer because of your experience.
yes.
Do you think there are many others out there like you who still, for whatever reason, don't believe that they can either catch it or that it's real, or that it's something that they need to take serious, or that all these measures that are in place are we're overreacting?
Um, you're not. I thought the government was just trying to basically scare the people to restrict them to, but no, it's real. It's very much real. I had to cry out to God for my life. I thought my hour had come.
Do you share your story with people? I mean, and even where you work, it's such a sensitive area because you're in contact with so many people. Do you share your experiences?
Yes, sir. Because this experience was not by chance, and God didn't bring me through this to keep it to myself. That's why He allowed me to go through this, for me to let people know that yes, this is real, but He is realer. He's bigger. This is not weak, I can tell you that. And I'm not talking just in the physical, in the spirit and in the mind. I prayed every single day, every single morning that I woke up. I said, God, thank you.
Janae,
Nothing
I
you
want
can
to
do.
thank you for being brave enough to come on and to talk, because what you are facing, so many people are facing, even in my own experience, my own family members have gone through it. So I know what you're talking about. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you're doing okay and you got through it all right. Thank you. Hopefully you are a voice that people will listen to, take it seriously, and certainly
But
we have to move forward as a nation. And certainly, this issue of the discrimination and the stigma, we've got to do something and put a stop to it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on.
you're welcome.
Don't go anywhere. Our last segment is right up after this break.
So the project really pays itself back. They
Correct.
set up
At the conference, more the school.
As a journalist, I always have to focus on the facts, and sometimes that means going to investigate for myself. On the Record, Thursdays at 8 p.m. right here on RTV.
You're watching On the Record. This is our final segment. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Due to the contagion of COVID-19, it makes it hard to have family and friends living in your household be there to check on you and to give you support and give you the support you need while you're fighting this virus. But imagine being miles away, studying or working abroad in the United States, in the epicenter when the virus first hit. Well, that's the story of my final guest for this segment. It's Bahamian actor Jonathan Farrington. Jonathan, welcome to the show. Tell us about your experience. We don't have a lot of time, but what was it like for you when you contracted this virus being on your own?
It was really scary, to be honest with you. I think at the time, the pandemic was like in its height, like where people in New York were dying by the thousands, by daily, and I was doing my best to like quarantine and do all the necessary things to just not get the virus, and I ended up getting it, and it was very scary because being alone with not much family, it's really weird because it's a new thing and nobody really knows how to to deal with this virus. It was pretty scary for me.
What was it, how did you, you're in New York at the epicenter, we're watching from here, realizing how bad it is. How was it for you getting care, getting attention when, all of this is going on around you?
Well, I mean, I must say, I think the governor and the officials in the government in New York specifically did a really good job in handling the virus, because New York was a hot spot at the beginning, and through quarantine orders and just daily they would come on, and they would try to, like, always keep the public updated on what to do and what's happening. I think they were able to get it down to a better manageable process. But what ended up happening was, once I got it, I actually went to one of the medical centers in New York and I got tested. It was free testing. They gave me all the rundown of having to quarantine and staying away from people. Obviously, they couldn't prescribe anything to me, but I felt like, where I was able to get the testing that I needed, and that kind of helped me to just stay quarantined and to try to fight the virus off by myself.
How were you able to manage in quarantine, getting what you needed, food, that kind of stuff? How did you manage with that?
Yeah, that was pretty weird for me, because I was alone. But what I did was, I actually had to use services. Like, I had to, pay for food to be delivered to my house. I wasn't really hungry, to be honest, because I had lost my appetite. But you use Uber Eats or Postmate to get vitamin supplements and water, just the basic necessities. Thank God for those services. Um, but I navigated it, and it was difficult, but I was able to do what I needed to do.
Once you got better, you made a determination to come home. You and I even talked about it when you were, on your way back home. What has it been like for you since you've been here? We're still grappling with this. You were here even in the height of the second wave. What has it been like, and what have been the noticeable differences for you?
I think for me, I was always bragging about the Bahamas, saying like how we had the virus contained here, and then of course it blew up. I think because we are a smaller, we're a smaller country, and the severity of the fact is, like, I told people that if this virus actually does, is unleashed in the Bahamas, that it will not be good, especially for our older generation. For me, coming back home, I went straight into quarantine. I didn't go anywhere, and I noticed that in the hype of everything that was going on, you had people pressuring for businesses to be opened and all these things to happen. But I was just always, harping on the side of safety. And even though I know the economy needs to be open and the economy needs to be moving, my main concern was always about the safety of Bahamians and their health. So I feel like now we've kind of found a system, thankfully so, and we're working that system. I'm hoping towards better results in the future. But I think through all of the circumstances, I think the Bahamas has done what it needed to do, and it's going to continue to do that, so we can keep them safe and still keep our economy up at the same time.
Jonathan, unfortunately, we are out of time. But first of all, welcome back home. I know that you were an aspiring actor in New York. As a matter of fact, as I told you, I found out about COVID in January when I was in New York doing a story on you. We're happy to have you home, but I know these are difficult circumstances, so continue to be safe. And we'll talk again. I'll make it a point to bring you back on the show and talk a little bit more about what's happening with you when things settle a bit. But thank you so much for talking with us today. We appreciate it, and continue to be safe. Thank you so much. Well, folks, since first announcing that I had contracted COVID-19, I've received countless calls and messages from so many of you wishing me well. I can't begin to say how grateful I am for the outpouring of concern. I thank you for your expressions. They are really, I know they are heartfelt, and I certainly appreciate them. I want to encourage all of you to continue to follow the protocols, take nothing for granted, protect those around you and anyone that you may come in contact with, and most importantly, look after yourselves. Try to maintain a healthy immune system with a healthy diet and some form of exercise. Remember to to stay up to date with the latest news and information on this network and on our nightly news on our News Bahamas on Facebook. That's going to do it for this edition of On the Record. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, right here on the record.